So this video is on yogically transmitted diseases. So obviously it's a play on spiritually transmitted diseases, which is an article that was published some time back. So yoga, wonderful practice. I've practiced myself for about 20 years on and off, pretty intensely the last few years. Helps a lot of people. What I've also noticed is there's certain kind of trends that almost spread through yoga as a medium, and some of those I think are not particularly healthy psychologically. And yoga is almost a transmitter for some of these, the kind of typhoid Mary of the modern spiritual world. So at the risk of being provocative, here are my top yogically transmitted diseases. So the one I see most at the time at the moment is narcissism. There's lots of books on this, lots of studies on this. All the studies show that narcissism is generally going up in culture. Obviously, it's very easy to be sort of anti-selfies or anti-Instagram. And I think with some good reason, though, you know, I'm on Instagram, I wouldn't necessarily say it's always a bad thing. But there certainly can be this culture of how you look rather than how you feel. And I'd say that's quite anti the spirit of yoga in terms of mindfulness being present to oneself. And I definitely see this can increase in yoga. People get a certain shape, a certain athleticism, a certain shine even, like the glow of the shiny American teacher. And I've seen actually narcissism increase in people through that. Kind of the ego expands. And I think that's also to do with, you know, you're being pumped. If you're doing these very strong vinyasa practices every day, actually pumping yourself full of testosterone. You know, there's a certain quality of, you know, men and women who do these practices, and I think combined with, you know, suddenly looking beautiful for teachers. I know for me it can be like getting a lot of attention as a teacher. You know, you're teaching at a festival and you've got 200 people literally bowing down as you bow down, yeah, doing the same thing you're doing on a primitive sort of level. That's a real hit to the ego as well, and it's one, you know, I know as a teacher myself to watch out for. I'd say it should be mandatory to be in psychotherapy if you're a yoga teacher personally, because of the potential of that. So yoga itself, you know, perhaps not to blame, but the culture around yoga and teaching yoga pretty dangerous from a kind of narcissistic point of view. So that's one yogically transmitted illness, I would say. What else do we have? Kind of isolationism would be another kind of, I'm yogic on my mat, away from you, meditating. I remember years ago I'd come from martial arts where it's much more social because, you know, Aikido particularly is very relational. I went to a yoga class and before class I tried to talk to someone. Next to me I said, hey, how's it going, you all right? Just being friendly, I'm new to the class. And they were like, shh, don't talk, it's not spiritual to talk. And I thought, that's so weird. That is so weird. This idea of being about me, me, me. And that can combine with the narcissism of like, I need my space for me, and you know, I have to have my own time to be in myself. And I'm like, dude, yeah, we all need to do retreats and get away and have a moment to ourselves in the day, but life's relational, right? So this isolating on a little rectangular prison, I think, can be a bit odd. And I've definitely seen that for more kind of introverted people go in through yoga in a way which isn't always healthy, and they might benefit from a more relational practice. That's why I think acro yoga's become so popular. I think it's a very good practice. Okay, what else have we got? So we've got just superstition, just nonsense. I mean, since the Enlightenment, the entire Western world has been built on rationality and logic and science, and you know, you can critique those things, and perhaps rightly. However, it's where we are today. You know, I'd say anyone who's critiquing kind of rationality and logic, I'd say, okay, in a court of law, would you like there to have to be a rational case in order to convince you? You know, if you're dying of cancer, would you like the drugs that have been tested? Yes, absolutely. Now, again, things can be wrong with the pharmaceutical industry or science or law courts, but basically it's what our society is built on, modernism, if you will, and irrationality, either from two places, either from postmodernism, everything's all good, everyone's equally valid, it's all just perspectives. No, it's not, there's truth. Or fundamentalism, there's only one truth and this is absolutely how it is. No, that's not the same as science. These two forces are quite big in yoga. It's a weird marriage in yoga of the sort of Eastern kind of like, do what your guru says, there's one true way, and just pure nonsense. I mean, people just speak some absolute crap in yoga, let's be honest. Like yoga teachers making all sorts of claims about detoxifying liver or this claim or that claim. I'm like, really? That's just not true. Like, look at Iyengar's books. They're full of shit. It's really, there's no basis for most of the stuff in there, the scientific claims. It's just nonsense. There's some good books on this now. If you look at Ariana Rabinovich's book, that's a good one for starters. I think it's called Yoga Myths, I think. Very good one. So yeah, getting rid of some of the superstition. I see that normally rational people suddenly go into a yoga context and start talking bollocks. I just kind of don't get it, and I think it seems to be almost transmitted through yoga because we have these high states in yoga that can happen, and somehow this kind of cultural influence, it seems sort of okay to suddenly become irrational. There's more I could say, but the last yogically transmitted illness or disease I want to talk about today is kind of Puritanism. So there's a way in which yoga can get quite neurotic, particularly if sort of Iyengar has to be very much like this, kind of controlling, and that can express in all kinds of ways. Like, I can tell this mat was put down by the cameraman and not a yogi because it's very slightly off straight, and I know many of my yoga friends just wouldn't be able to tolerate that in a class. I deliberately do it to the mats, actually, sometimes it's funny. And that can also express this kind of food. There's this idea of yoga of like cleansing and fasting and, you know, only drinking green smoothies for a year, or you know, sleeping on a bed of nails, or, you know, I know people don't literally do that these days, but there's this kind of neurotic cleanliness fixation on purity in the yoga world. Like, most studios are white and everything's very clean and very well arranged, and you know, I get that order's helpful and order's a useful thing to develop in lives and our environments, but it does seem to go a bit too far, and I definitely see the slightly controlling neurotic yogis compared to, say, people I know in the dance community who are much more kind of relaxed about that kind of stuff. So there's some of the things that I see are almost using yoga as a carrier, as they're going through yoga. So I don't think the problem itself is yoga, but perhaps culture and perhaps some things to watch out for in the yoga world. So if you like that, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit the little bell button so you get the videos rather than just subscribe. Obviously, likes and comments are very useful for us. It's always nice to hear what people think, to ask questions. I will respond to them if you do. Yeah, so ask questions, share your own experiences, and it just means that more people see the videos, which is nice for us. It also means you're more likely to see it yourself in the future. So if you've liked it, please like it.